What is? Oh no, what does that mean? Yeah, no mistakes. Once the curtain opens, that's it. Like you're on, so it has to be perfect.
네, 안녕하세요. 대한민국 장사꾼입니다. 오늘의 게스트는 이분의 이력이 상당히 특이한데 제가 약간 간략하게 설명을 하자면 캘리포니아에서 태어나셨는데 이스라엘로 돌아가셔서 그래서 군복무를 마치고 연기 경력을 쌓기 위해서 뉴욕대 NYU TISCH 스쿨에 입학해서 졸업을 하시고 브로드웨이랑 할리우드를 오가면서 굉장히 활약을 하고 계신 그런 게스트입니다.
My older cousin got married there. If I wasn't getting married, we wouldn't have come. Sometimes I think it's good. Sometimes I wonder if I could get arrested because of it. I'm Maya Schneider. I'm an Israeli-American actress, and yeah, I am currently visiting my boyfriend here who was living in Seoul during the pandemic, so...
From your background, you finished your military service in Israel.
Right, yes.
So could you tell us in detail, like, how was it like Israel?
Not in too much detail, but yeah.
Okay.
No, so yes, there is mandatory military service in Israel, both for men and for women. When I served, which was 10 years ago, it was 2 years mandatory for girls, 3 years mandatory for guys. Usually they make you take a test before you draft into your service so they know what your profile is and what positions are appropriate for you. And based off of that, off of those tests, then they offer you certain positions that you can apply for. And then there are more tests that you need to do for those specific positions. So I was fortunate enough to have a position that I really liked. It was in the liaison division. So I worked with the American military that was based in Israel. So we had generals that were representing the US military in Israel. So we were working on a lot of mutual delegations coming from the US to Israel and Israel to the US, which involved a lot of strategic planning and a lot of mutual exercises. So there are some very big exercises that are done with the special forces from the IDF and special forces from the US. So, you know, we train each other and we exercise together. So, yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Is there like a military song?
Military song?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's like a specific song that you can say, but I think morale is very important in the IDF. So each unit kind of makes up their own song. So yeah, so there's one song that all IDF soldiers know.
Sure.
Oh God.
Sure.
Nishba, היום הזה שבא. I don't even know the rest of the words, but it's something like that. Nishba. Nishba means I swear. So.
Nishba.
Nishba. Ani nishba.
Nishba. Nishba.
Does it sound like a Korean word?
Korean word.
Which one?
Korean bad word.
Oh no.
There's one bad word.
What is? Oh no. What does that mean?
But the ni means you.
So you. Nishba.
Sounds like very similar, right? Nishba.
Oh no! Wow. So IDF, this is a note to you. You have to change the words now.
Nishba.
Can't be Nishba anymore.
What inspired you to acting? You have experience like doing acting in Broadway, right?
So not exactly Broadway. I wish. There's Broadway, which is up here, very, very high, and then there's off Broadway, and then off Broadway, off Broadway. So there are a lot of tiers.
Baseball, then major leaguer, and minor league, like that.
So yeah, exactly, yeah.
What were you doing in there?
So I came to New York to study acting. So after I finished my military service, I decided I wanted to study acting. So I went to school at NYU, TISCH. Yeah.
TISCH가 이게 얼마나 대단하냐면 거기에 뭐 세계적인 감독부터 배우들 굉장히 많이 나왔죠. 이제 우리나라 이제 봉준호 감독님 존경한다는 마틴 스콜시지 감독님이랑 이제 뭐 다코타 패닝, 이제 앤 해스 웨이부터 시작해 엄청나게 다양하게 많아. 많이 나왔고 오뚜기 회장의 자녀분이 또 거기서 나왔다고 하더라고요.
Okay. So basically in the US there are a lot of extracurricular activities that you can do. So unfortunately the arts in Israel, if you go to a normal school, there aren't always a lot of extracurricular programs like theater or sports or stuff like that. So, but I was always interested in acting, but I never tried it out or never did anything about it. But then after I finished my military service and when I was about to start going to university, I still didn't know what I wanted to study, but I knew acting is something I always wanted to try out. And if I don't do it now, I won't have another time to do it. So I decided this is my time. I'm going to do finally something that I want to do and not something that someone else is telling me to do. And I did 1 semester over there and I decided this is it. This is what I want to study. And because I know that acting is a very unstable career, you know, so I wanted to have a degree, not only, you know, learn how to study, but I also wanted to go to university. And unfortunately, there are excellent acting schools in Israel, but they don't offer a degree. So I decided to go to NYU because it's also an excellent acting school, and also you get a BFA, a bachelor's degree.
새로운 걸 제가 도전하는 그런. In Korea, like some of people are dreaming of being maybe actor or actress, and maybe in Hollywood or Broadway. What is the process of becoming an actor?
So it is such a tough and long process because there's really no linear progression in acting. You know, it's not like a standard office job where you know if you enter this entry-level position, you stay in it for a couple of years, then you get promoted, and then you stay there for a couple of years, and then you get promoted again. It doesn't work like that in acting. You can be working for 20 years just doing normal plays and shooting just material that you shoot yourself, but something that makes it more, I guess, official, there are unions in the US for actors. So there's the SAG, SAG-AFTRA now, which is the Actors Union for Screen Actors. So that's the actors that you see in Hollywood.
Screen Actor Guild Award.
Screen Actors Guild, yes.
There's one Korean movie, Parasite.
Yes.
Got an award from.
Yeah, it won the Oscar. Yeah.
No, from the SAG too.
Yes, best ensemble.
Best ensemble movie, so he got a trophy from that.
Yeah, and I mean that's an incredible achievement. Like and it was a great movie too.
그 미국에서 제가 볼 때 4대 조합이 있는데 이제 연기자 조합이랑 미국 감독 조합, 그리고 미국 작가 조합, 그리고 미국 프로듀스 조합이 있는데 기생충이 이제 미국 연기자 조합에서 주는 뭐 영광스러운 상을 받았다고 하더라고요. Parasite. Now you are in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, so I moved from New York. I was in New York for about 7 years. I moved to Los Angeles about 2 years ago.
What is the difference between Hollywood and Broadway?
Oh man, very, very different. It's almost like the difference between theater and film, which are like two completely different worlds. I would say New York is mostly the hub for theater, and so it's just that's in the DNA of New York City is theater. So like everywhere you go, everything is like theatrical and dramatic, and like even the pace of the city, like everything is just constantly moving super fast, and you feel like you keep on jumping from one thing to another. And then in Los Angeles, it feels a lot more relaxed. And people, I don't know if it's the fact that there's a beach over there which helps, so you know people are more chill.
The geography affects like those business.
Very much, yes. The geography definitely affects. Yeah, being in New York in the winter is brutal with the snow and the cold and the subway. It sucks. It's not fun at all. So LA is more so the hub for film and TV. So that's where a lot of the networks are, a lot of the production companies are based over there. So I guess the difference between Hollywood and Broadway, again, I think it's more so a question of what's the difference between theater and film. And at least from my experience, I feel like with theater, it's a lot more an ensemble, collective kind of effort. And it even starts with the rehearsal process. Where for a play, you can be working on rehearsals for months, maybe like 2 months, 3 months. and it's always as a collective. You always see your castmates, you always work on scenes together. And so, you know, in theater, it's not like film where you can say cut and then you cut and restart and go into it again. In theater,
working in team.
Yes, you're working in a team and it's one shot.
No mistake.
Yeah, no mistakes. Once the curtain opens, that's it. Like you're on for the entire run of the show and you can't stop, you can't run to do it over, so it has to be perfect. And that's why it's very important to have the connection between the actors and make sure you're all kind of on the same wavelength, that you're all in it together. And so it's very important to form that bond between the cast. And that's for theater, which of course is also important for film. But I think for film, it's more individual work. Even it's not as typical to have a rehearsal process even. Like maybe you have 1 or 2 days or 2 sessions for a rehearsal for film, but then mostly you work on set. So a lot of the work is just you have to really, you know, do a lot of work at home on your own, memorize the script, memorize your lines, of course do all the character work as you do for theater as well. And then you have to come 100% prepared to be on set and, you know, start from whichever scene it is. Because in film, it's not always chronological. So it's not that you necessarily start filming from the first scene. You can start filming from the end of the film and then, you know, it changes. So you have to be on it all the time.
그런 차이가 있다니. Theater always working in team, but movie individually just like pass the resume and waiting and practice with their own time.
Yeah, that was my experience.
It is the last question.
Sure.
It is the last question. If you were to make a movie about Korea or given a role into Korean movie, so which theme or subject would you like to cover? Right?
So yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think again it ties back to why Parasite was so successful in the US. Is I think the social issues is something that's very interesting to most like Westerners. Just seeing again the disparities in the society. So I think that's something that I would focus on, like seeing how it would be just for a standard Korean citizen, like trying to get by, like, and it starts with, you know, the education that we were talking a little bit about before, like how, the intensity of how important it is over here to succeed. Skycastle, exactly. And it's interesting because in the US, I know there's definitely a lot of pressure from the parents for the child to succeed. So that is something that is felt in American society as well, but I think over here it's something in a different level. And seeing like a comparison between that as well would be really interesting, I think.
이상으로 이제 브로드웨이와 할리우드를 왔다 갔다 걸으며 정복하는 우리 마야 씨 인터뷰.
감사합니다.
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 다음은 이제 궁금하신 분은 이제 다음 영상 기대하시면 됩니다. 클릭 구독과 좋아요 부탁드리겠습니다.
Really?